In the modern era of Dokkan, I believe that we are very accustomed to, at this point, meta-defining characters that are super broken, and you definitely want to have them, right? A lot of times in these cases, players will start new accounts or get farmed accounts and try and get dupes into these characters and stuff like that. But if you are somebody that has an account that's been going on for years and stuff like that, a lot of the times what will happen is you will summon it and try and get these characters, but if you don't, oh well, you're just going to wait until you're able to buy them with coins. But what if I told you that there was a character who was released that was so broken that it literally got to a point where the philosophy was either you pull this character or you reroll? Well, today we're going to dive into a character that actually fulfilled that condition. Allow me to introduce you the first ever anniversary TUR, and his name is Super Gogeta. It's very fitting that a Super Gogeta is the character that fulfills this specific condition where if you do not have them, you start a new account and you go until you get them, right? That is going to be the case with this Super Gogeta. Now, you might be saying, vilify, or you might be saying, guy uploading this video who I don't know. What in the world are we looking at? This guy does nothing. Well, let me tell you something. This character was so good at the time compared to the rest of the game that he was that broken, where it was literally, if you were on global, you saved all your stones and got ready to summon for this character, or if you were a newer player, you literally just re-rolled until you had this character. It was quite literally either you have this character or you don't have a Dokkan account, right? This is how the game was at this point, right? I think context is everything in this matter, and we have to understand where this character came out in terms of context, right? This character released on, this is the, is this the global version of this? No, this is the JP version, because February, right? The release date on this, right? This is February of 2016. Now, the most important thing to remember at this point with Gogeta is just the characters that came out around him, right? Let me go ahead and show you some of the examples and why this character was so broken. Okay, so we have made it down to the OG releases of Dokkan Battle, and here are going to be some of the examples of characters that we had. Now, let's go ahead and pull up the first one that I want to look at today. This is the Super Easy A Super Saiyan 3 Goku, where this character, he looks pretty good, right? But let's go ahead and click on that pre-Easy A button. Oh, yeah, you see what I mean? Attack plus 100% for 7 turns was the passive. And this character only led 1 typing, right? So you guys can understand that this was a character that did not have much going on, right? He was simple, he was made for an AGL team, just you had to run the game a certain way. This was what was known as the monotyping meta. And if you guys do not know, the monotyping meta revolved around running a team of 1 typing, hence the mono, right? I'm not going to explain to you guys what that means. If you don't know what mono means, just look it up, and don't look up mononucleosis, okay? Just, it's going to be a difference. So we go to pre-Easy A. For Kid Buu, you guys can see this is a character that has an all allies attack increases based on HP, right? This is what we are going to be talking about, right? You guys can see that passives were very simple. Characters did not have great leader skills, and the game kind of just did not have a ton going on for you, right? Teams were based on very separate things. We go back to pre-Easy A, again, attack plus 30% for all types. So, you guys think about a leader skill that's bad nowadays. It is 170% with an extra 32 bad categories. These are leader skills where you literally are just getting attack buffs. So, OG Dokkan Fest, you guys kind of get the idea. You want to run a team consisting of 1 typing, and you want to kind of put these characters together. But what did Gogeta do that gave characters in this time period different relevancy period, or what did they do to make things relevant for everybody else? Well, if we go over here, we have all types key plus 3 and attack plus 3,000. Now, again, in terms of a modern leader skill, this is horrible. This is what are we talking about here? This is terrible. But again, we have to understand the context of when the game was around, where this character ended up sitting at, right? This was something that was pretty mind-boggling at the time, right? So, in a time where if we want to kind of filter this out, right? I have this filtered by URs, but if you wanted to make a team, right, with Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Kid Buu, you really couldn't do that, right? You could run Kid Buu as a leader, but it would be a very funky-looking team, right? So what this Gogeta gave you access to was an ability to buff all of these characters on 1 team. So you can see all of the URs behind Super Gogeta. These characters can now be ran on the leader skill because, again, this is all types key plus 3. And another thing that we have to remember is this is also a time period where super attacks were not like the meta, right? This was not like a common thing. If you could do a super attack on your squad, that was definitely a luxury. This was something that you weren't going to be able to do consistently, right? Normal attacks were very, very common at the time. Bosses were not hitting you with supers for 4 million, right? Characters weren't dropping 50 million attack stats turn 1 because they have some support, or not even support, but they have like, you know, a certain condition up against certain enemies and stuff like that, or there's a domain active, right? The game just definitely operated in a different way. So what Super Gogeta brought to the table was the ability to run all of these characters at one time, right? We had both of these anniversary characters. You could run them together under this all types league. So that was something that was super, super important, right? This is something that would just go and give you a lot more freedom in the way that you could build teams. This was the character to have, right? If you did not have this character, you did not have a leader where you could bring any character in the game and put them on this team. This opened up possibilities for team building like you wouldn't believe. Like, imagine right now, right? If we had a character in the game who was super class allies plus key plus 4, attack and defense and HP plus 200%. It was a carnival leader for super class, or carnival leader for extreme class, or hell, even a carnival leader of 200% for all types. He just leads the whole game. 200% for the whole game. You could run any team now. Any character can fit on this leader skill. Guess what? This would be the only character in the game that you would run as a leader, no matter what, right? There's no reason to not do it, because that character is head and shoulders going to be able to give you more team building freedom and more ability to do whatever you want compared to the rest of the game, right? We think about the modern carnival leader right now. Let's talk about Tech LR Broly. This is a character that leads movie bosses, right? So what do you have to do? You have to consider what characters are on movie bosses, right? We look at this list. There's not many movie bosses. How far do I have to scroll to find a movie boss? Right here, right? This is a movie boss. This is a movie boss. I think you're a movie boss. You might not be a movie boss. You might just be tied to super. You are a movie boss, right? So, you know, you would have to think about that. But imagine if this whole page was just everyone fit under that 200% leader skill, right? That is what this Gogeta was able to bring to the table with this all types, right? Now, like I said, the game was at a very different period. Bosses were way different. Dokkan events were way different. The game just functioned differently. This was not the case of like the modern releases where we have accounts with 8 years of buildup, 9 years of buildup, hell, even 2 or 3 years of buildup where re-rolling is just counterproductive. Easy A's were not introduced yet, right? The game was in a way different state. So the ability to have this sort of philosophy of summon this character or re-roll, it just doesn't exist in the modern day just based on the way that things work now. The way that we've introduced pity, the way that they've introduced coin systems, right? The way they've introduced guaranteed featured multis. This character did so much for the game in terms of the way things went and stuff like that, that I think it's important that we talk about it and don't forget the history of things that we came from. Now, I'm going to be the first guy to admit I was not playing at this time, but this character has a legend to him, right? He is definitely like the most meta-defining, like game-breaking character in comparison to the rest of the game that we've ever seen. I think that LR Beast Gohan, right, we talk about him as being like the modern-day STR Gogeta. That's probably the closest thing that you're going to see in terms of like how things work. And even with that, right, we still had characters like not similar in quality to Beast Gohan, but similar in things that you wanted to do, right? Beast Gohan led a superheroes team. So when Beast Gohan led a superheroes team, right, there are other superheroes leaders, right? We think about Orange Piccolo, we think about Physical Ultimate Gohan. These are characters that could potentially lead that spot, right? So it's not like this character was like literally the only character you needed to have. You needed to reroll if you didn't have them. It wasn't that bad. Now, was this character, like, obviously he was better in terms of like the character kit, but he was nowhere near as game defining and like you need to have this character. Otherwise, you might as well just reroll, right? Because that just does not exist anymore. So I think it's just kind of a fun thing to go back in time and look at how this works. One thing I have to mention before we go as well, I forgot to mention this in his passive. We've been talking about the leader skill and how broken that is. One thing you guys have to remember as well is that he was effective against all types. So in a type advantage or a typing meta where typing is everything, offensively, this guy, you could put him in slot 2, do whatever you need to do, and offensively, he's going to be able to put up damage like he is AGL, right? Or not AGL, like he is, if you're going up against the AGL, he will do damage like he is like a neutral unit or a tech unit, right? Because he's effective against all types. So he is not at type disadvantage when he's up against an AGL enemy. So that is a huge deal, right? When the game revolved around typings, the game revolved around the leader skills being very important. This guy was the top of the class and a character that you must have, otherwise you had to reroll. So, like I said, I think it's important to preserve that history and sort of look back on things like that. Again, I was not here to experience this, but I've also seen the stories, stuff like that, so I figured I would at least cover it and try to give you an idea of why this character was so good compared to the rest of the game at the time. So, quick TLDR, we have his leader skill allowed you to run all of the characters in the game on one team. That way you didn't have to focus on monotyping. He allowed you to be essentially at type advantage against any enemy. And then he also allowed for you to sort of, you know, what's the word here, right? He just gave you the ability to do a lot of things that other characters just simply could not at the time, right? I'm kind of stumbling on my words a little bit. So that's my cue to get up on out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little revisit on the only character really ever to have a pull or reroll sort of philosophy to him. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick look at it. Don't forget to drop a like if you did enjoy, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you all in the next one.